So nutrition, the importance of nutrition. This is a biggie. I will cover this later, but 80% of our body composition is based on what we put in it. 80%. The rest of it will be your genetics, your sleep, your exercise, your stress levels, etc., that will actually have an impact on your body composition and your weight, etc. But 80% of it is based on what you put in it. Now, if you take a moment to scan the word cloud here, you'll probably recognize quite a few of the words, well, maybe many of the words, and they're all associated with health and wellness. But it can be overwhelming when we're thrown so much different advice, either on social media, on the radio, the television, by your doctors even, and it can be really overwhelming. And it's understandable why some people will. They'll start something and they'll give up so quickly because they'll see really quick results and then they'll plateau, or they'll plateau and then they'll put the weight back on, or it's slow and steady wins the race really. Choose something that works for you and make sure it's simple and sustainable steps that are fun, and that you can then carry on with those steps throughout your life. So the thing is, despite the wonders of modern civilization, with science and food availability, we have an abundance of choice and abundance of temptation. Also misinformation, of course. And it makes it more difficult for us to understand what is the best route to go. So yeah, we've got all sorts of things on there. You've got your keto, your vegan, your whole food, your low fat, your high fat. So yeah, big choices to make. But the biggest thing to remember is it's not about being on a diet, it's about changing your diet. And that's the important thing. So dieting doesn't work. It really does not work. As soon as you finish a diet, you're going to go back to your old habits, and whatever it was that you were trying to do will come back again to haunt you, especially if it's weight. If you've lost weight on a diet, then if you're going to come off that diet, then your weight's going to come back on again. But it's about the types of food that we're eating. So here we've got the high sugar, ultra processed diet, which was the thing that was killing me. So high sugar, ultra processed, sedentary living, high stress, and that 24/7 stress availability of food and social media, etc. So how does that make you feel? Well, the common complaints I get from my clients, but also I have myself, is that the gut issues, the bloatedness, we put on weight, obviously, that low mood and low energy. And because of that, we're lacking in confidence, not only in our bodies, but in our abilities to do things as well. Low libido, get that one a lot, because if you haven't got the energy and you're not feeling good in yourself, it's going to impact your libido. As we age, obviously, again, we have big hormonal changes, whether it's for the menopause for the women or testosterone loss for the men. But there are a lot of things that you can do naturally before jumping on the bandwagon of taking medication. Again, I'm not knocking medication at all. So it's not about the weight loss. It's about your diet. It's about what you put into your body. And as we've said before, the majority of health challenges that we are struggling with nowadays are based on the lifestyle choices that we are making. So what is ultra processed? It's where it's in a package, it's in plastic, it's in cardboard. I mean, the best thing I would suggest would be, shop in the areas where there is no packaging, so your meats, your fruits and veg and things like that. But if you look at packaging, and you can see how many items are mentioned in the ingredients, what if you can't recognize those ingredients, or you can't pronounce them, or you have to Google them to see what they are? If that's the case, why are we putting them in our bodies? And I often speak to people about how my grandparents lived, and they had a simpler lifestyle, not necessarily better, but they had a simpler lifestyle. And they in the back garden, they once had an allotment, but then they moved it, their back garden then became like their vegetable patch, and they would have gone and visited their local butcher to get the meat. So everything was more locally sourced. It wasn't that 24/7 availability of things flown in from around the world. like I say, not necessarily had a better life than us, but they had a simpler life. So it's the unrecognizable ingredients. If there's more than 5 items, I mean, really, we should go for one item foods. And cook our own. But it's if you can go for the unprocessed foods as much as possible, because I do appreciate there is the advantage of convenience foods when you're working hard. But the high sugar and the high carb and high salt in ultra processed foods, and how that impacts you, especially the high sugar and the high carbs, as soon as it enters your body, it turns into glucose in your bloodstream. And then that obviously impacts your insulin, which can't cope with the amount of carbs and sugar that you're putting in it. And so stores itself as fat. Um, Look out for fresh food with a long shelf life. There's a reason why it's got a long shelf life, and it'll be because it's got some additives in there. It's got some things in there that, mean it's no longer fresh food. And it's the aggressive marketing. We'll see it with the kids' breakfast cereals, or they'll say things like, added nutrients, or fiber, and lots of different advertising that's done to promote those fast foods or those processed foods. You don't actually ever see for real meat or vegetables or fruits. They don't need to advertise because they're just what they are. It's what they say on the tin. So if you want to change your eating habits, it's quite simple. Again, we're not talking about counting calories here. It's just about taking things back to basics, eating foods that are fresh, colourful, a bit like the rainbow plate, and densely nutritious. I mean, they're fantastic foods, with a high quality of and high quantity of proteins and healthy fats. So the healthy fats will be things like your avocados and your nuts and seeds, and olive oil and avocado oil, ghee, butter, things like that. Drink more water. So hunger is not an emergency, and quite often we want to reach for something, but actually, if we drank more water, with the hunger would satiate for a while. And enjoy cooking at home. And again, I know we have busy lifestyles, but if we plan ahead, and we batch cook, then it's easy to grab things out of the freezer. Someone has asked me recently about, well, isn't this a much more expensive way to eat? If you're buying foods that are unadulterated and fresh, then yes, they do tend to be more expensive. However, they're more satiating than the high carb and high sugar foods, which you will want to eat more of them because they're addictive and they take you on that spike, and then you come crashing back down again. And be mindful when you're eating. Don't rush the foods. Enjoy the mouthfuls that you're taking and the sensations you're getting from that food. And if you do have foods that you start acknowledging might not be the best for you, that they might make you bloat, or they might not make you feel, they might give you a headache. Well, if you are going to have them, say that might be a glass of wine for me. That's what I'd like, a nice glass of wine. And I would just be mindful about it while I'm having it. Yeah, how does it make me feel? Is it the best quality wine? Don't go and buy something really cheap because you fancy a glass of wine. Maybe I'll use a bar of chocolate as an example as well. Go, or some bread. Go for the best quality. Go for the bread that smells like it's just been baked, and it might have some seeds and nuts in it, and it just tastes absolutely delicious. Not something that, some bread that will stick to your fingers when you squeeze it because it's just so cheap and nasty. And just be mindful about how it makes you feel, and enjoy it, and then just move on. So these are the choices that are thrown at us. Via like I said before, about advertising, and you will inherently know that a lot of these things aren't healthy. Specifically the sweets, the fizzy juice, the donuts, the refined sugar products. But my guess is that there are a few things on this slide that you may not have expected, like the bread, the cereal, pasta, and the vegetable oils. Vegetable oils like sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, things like that are nasty. They are highly manufactured. They are really toxic to your body. So if you can transfer your choices from an oil perspective to the ghee, the coconut oil, olive oil, butter, well, there's lots of other choices, but more natural oils, that'll be great. And so in a nutshell, these are all processed foods, and most of them will have colourful, attractive packaging to attract you. That's a bad sign from the get-go. But then, like we said earlier, if you look at the list of ingredients, it will be as long as your arm and full of stuff that I bet you can't even pronounce. So again, if you want to go for some bread, go for the best type of bread or go to your local bakers. And I mentioned this before, so our body composition is determined primarily by what we eat. There are obviously some lucky people who never seem to put on any weight, no matter what they do, although that doesn't necessarily mean that everything on the inside is healthy. But in general, we cannot out-exercise a bad diet. But going back to those that look slim and might not be necessarily healthy on the inside, think of the word skinny fat. There's a lot of people out there that are really slim, but they're not particularly healthy. And actually, I was one of them. I never carried a lot of weight, but I was pretty sick for those 30 years. So when we compensate with too much junk food and more exercise, we will have some short-term successes. But eventually our bodies will then compensate by making us feel tired and burnt out, and then we won't want to do the exercise or to do the other things that bring us joy. So it doesn't work in the long time. So again, 80% of your body composition is determined by what you eat.